Thank you for joining us for the final entry in the IEEE Cybersecurity for Next Generation's Connectivity Systems Working Group series for Cybersecurity Month of 2025. My name is Drew Spaniel, and I'm the founder and director of research of Mission Critical, which is a nonprofit that focuses on facilitating collaboration between academia, industry, and government to develop research that improves critical infrastructure, security, and resilience. Today, we are speaking about the future of secure connectivity with Dr. Dave Chatterjee, who is an adjunct associate professor at Duke University and a leading authority on cybersecurity strategy and governance. He is the creator of the Commitment, Preparedness, Discipline Framework, the CPD framework. He helps organizations worldwide strengthen security cultures and resilience, and he is the author of Cybersecurity Readiness and the cybercrime themed novel, The Deepfake Conspiracy. His work has been featured in prestigious publications including MIS Quarterly, Business Horizons, California Management Review, The Wall Street Journal, Forbes, USA Today, and Business Insider. He is the host of the acclaimed Cybersecurity Readiness podcast series, and he advises Fortune 500 firms and government agencies delivering impactful keynotes and moderating CXO panels. For more details, I encourage you to visit his website and his LinkedIn page. Welcome, Dr. Chatterjee. It's great to have you here today.
Well, Drew, thank you for that very kind introduction. I truly appreciate the invite, and I'm delighted to share my 2 cents on this exceedingly important topic, the future of secure connectivity. You know, the word connectivity sounds so obvious because we are in the digital age, and every second we are getting more and more connected electronically, virtually, digitally, whichever way you want to think about it. In this presentation, I'd like to explore the accelerating convergence of connectivity, cybersecurity, and quantum innovation, outlining how organizations can strategically prepare for the next frontier of secure digital infrastructure. Framed through the commitment, preparedness, discipline model, the session bridges executive governance and technical execution, offering a structured roadmap towards quantum secure connectivity. Like I just shared in my intro, the title of today's presentation is the future of secure connectivity, and I'm going to emphasize what's ahead of us in the form of quantum computing, and you can translate that into quantum threats and quantum opportunities. Well, so I'll start off with some professional highlights, then talk about the connectivity trends and challenges, then get into the aspects or dimensions of quantum computing as a catalyst and a disruptor, and then move on to how quantum computing can be used or leveraged to create a very secure environment. And we'll conclude the presentation with some strategic imperatives for executives and technical leaders. Drew gave me a very kind introduction, so I'm going to flip through these professional highlights really quick. The 3 areas that I focus on from the standpoint of research, consulting practice, talks are cybersecurity governance, strategic management of technologies, and supply chain management. The different roles that I play, as Drew said, I'm a professor at Duke University. I'm also an author, an editor, speaker, podcaster, and a consultant. Almost sounds like a jack of all trades. I hope that's not the case. But anyhow, let's keep moving along. Wanted to give a quick glimpse of the different articles that I have published. And throughout my academic career, I have tried to do work that informs practice. So I've tried to balance academic rigor and practitioner relevance. Not like it's an either or, but I've always been very sensitive to doing work that informs practice. I came from industry. I actively engage with industry. So it's very important to me that my work impacts practice. My three offerings that tend to highlight what I bring to the table currently are the first book that I published in 2021, Cybersecurity Readiness, a Holistic and High-Performance Approach, which is where I talk about the Commitment, Preparedness, and Discipline Framework, the CPD framework, and we'll be using that lens to talk about the future of secure connectivity and how quantum computing can be appropriately leveraged. Then I recently published another book, The Deepfake Conspiracy, which is a little different in its take and focus. It's for the mass media. I wanted to enhance awareness of the deepfake phenomenon, given the significant challenges and tremendous consequences that individuals and organizations are facing when dealing with deepfake threats and attacks. And finally, I also have the pleasure of hosting and producing the Cybersecurity Readiness podcast series, which is in its fourth year. I just published the 93rd episode. It has listeners in 117 countries, has been downloaded close to 14,000 times, and is being actively used in academic settings as well as for practitioners in the form of training material. It's also being referenced in research, and recently I published a case drawing from a particular episode. So I'm very thrilled to have this opportunity of hosting this series and in the process, connecting with subject matter experts across the world, talking about the latest leading edge developments. And I hope to share with you some of those insights. I've had the pleasure of serving on the cybersecurity SWAT team. So it's not just speaking from the ivory tower as many will say about academics. I've tried to be a hands-on academic as much as possible, and through my consulting and through work as participants in a cybersecurity SWAT team, I've tried to get my hands and feet dirty, as they say, to have a really good understanding of cybersecurity phenomenon and how to guide organizations towards robust governance. I enjoy delivering talks. I enjoy collaborating with practitioners. I'm on the RSA expert portal. I've done conference webinars with them. I'm honored that IEEE would invite me to do such a webinar, and any opportunity I get to present my insights in front of practitioners or academics are absolutely phenomenal, because I'm constantly learning through such engagements. And hopefully I'm sharing a few things that are of value to both these communities. So now let's talk about the connectivity trends and challenges. As we all know, with the emergence of 5G and 6G technologies, with the emergence of edge computing, the Internet of Things, and last but not the least, the AI phenomenon, there is an absolute explosion of connectivity. While this is a wonderful thing, bringing along many advantages, the most important of which is convenience, and then there is speed, there is efficiency, there is effectiveness. We can go on and on. However, on the flip side, it also expands the attack surfaces. And the moment that happens, that creates more challenges from a security standpoint. So while connectivity is a great thing, while having smart cities, smart hospitals, smart homes, smart cars, smart organizations are absolutely desirable, there's a price to be paid for achieving a high level of smarts, and that is trying to stay secure. So it's a double-edged sword, and that's something that we will delve throughout this presentation as to how to manage these technologies well, how to leverage them in a manner and a fashion that makes most sense. I often say this in many of my talks, that technology is a great thing, but please don't use it mindlessly. Mindful use of technology is absolutely key and is the differentiator between technology creating great things and technology creating havoc. So that is something that organizations, executives, individuals need to be mindful of. In this particular slide, I have named it Expanding and Converging the Cyber Threat Landscape for a particular reason. I'm sure you recognize that the lines between the physical world and the digital world is blurring extremely fast. From a security standpoint, if your systems have been compromised electronically, that has consequences for the physical systems, whether it's compromising of the power grid, whether it's compromising of the technology that is leveraged to keep our water sanitized, and many other products. If those systems are compromised, we have a problem in our hands. And if I take it a step further, and we are talking about the nuclear plants out there globally, and they are under constant attacks by the perpetrators. Fortunately, we haven't seen a nuclear fiasco yet. I don't like to engage in fear mongering, but I think it's important for us to be aware, especially given our experience with the pandemic, that unless we globally come together and do our part, we could be facing a cybersecurity or cybercrime enabled nuclear fiasco, which would cause major damage globally. So those are the challenges that we are up against, and they weigh much heavier than the reputation damage, than the bankruptcy, than many other things that organizations face when they are compromised from a security standpoint. I'm not trying to suggest those are desirable outcomes, they are not. But in the big scheme of things, we have to be very sensitive and do everything possible to secure our critical infrastructure. As you see from this slide deck, the more processes have been digitized, the more smart devices are in use, the more the work environment has gotten mobile. We continue to expand the scope and dimensions of connectivity, and with that, expands the attack surfaces. So as I said at the very beginning, there is a price to be paid to be highly connected. And that price is vulnerability to different types of attacks. So therefore, if we want to enjoy the convenience of connectivity, we must be extremely disciplined and diligent on doing our part when it comes to security. We can't rely on one company, on one federal agency, or a group of them to secure us. We all have to do our part. That's why there is that saying that cybersecurity is everybody's business. Everyone has a role to play. So now let's get into quantum computing, which is already here, happening, and more to come. I've had the pleasure of engaging with podcast guests on this topic. I gave a talk on this topic at the RSA conference last year. So I would like to believe I have some understanding of this phenomenon. What makes this phenomenon very interesting is that at one level, quantum computing is a catalyst for faster processing, for ultra-secure communication, for higher levels of signal integrity. So those are some of the many benefits that quantum computing is going to bring. However, on the other side, on the flip side, the quantum's power to break down today's public key cryptography threatens the backbone of secure connectivity from SSL to VPNs. So here we go again. As I said earlier, there are two sides to the same coin. Whether we are talking about connectivity in general, or whether we are talking about quantum computing, there's the good and there's the dark side, and we have to manage the dark side so that we can enjoy the good. So then we move on to quantum enhanced secure networking. What does that mean? Well, NIST has done a great job in standardizing and approving some of the algorithms that are being used for cryptography purposes, and they are being adopted more and more by organizations as we speak. At the same time, what has also emerged are these hybrid cryptographic approaches. And here I don't want to get too technical, but basically the goal is to marry the best of both the worlds and create encryption frameworks that stand the test of time, that are secure, and that are quantum safe. This transition to quantum safe networks is already underway, as I just said, guided by NIST standardized post-quantum cryptography algorithms and hybrid encryption frameworks. So now when we look at the quantum secure connectivity roadmap, this is where I'd like to bring in the commitment, preparedness, and discipline framework for holistic cybersecurity governance. And you will see why this framework makes sense when we are trying to lay down a roadmap of secure connectivity enabled by quantum computing. So what are the three dimensions or three anchors or three pillars of this framework? Commitment is about leadership commitment and involvement. Preparedness is about capability development and proactive planning. And I just lost here's the slide. And discipline is about governance, audit, and continuous learning. Drew, are my slides still visible?
Yep, I had muted myself there.
Okay, fantastic. So now we move on to the commitment dimension. Now, commitment is associated with several success factors. I don't have time in this presentation to go over each of these success factors, but the overall goal, as in the previous slide I mentioned, is the need for active leadership involvement and commitment to achieve secure connectivity. Preparedness is about capability development, making sure organizations have the technical, the organizational, the procedural capabilities to offer a secure and robust environment. And it has to be a proactive approach to preparedness. Finally, discipline is about institutionalizing, embedding robust processes so one can sustain a high level of security over a period of time. When we are trying to secure our networks, secure our systems, secure our data, we are not trying to do it for short periods of time. We would like to do it for eternity. Now, while eternity might be an idealistic goal, the approach should be long-term. And to achieve a long-term goal, there has to be discipline at an individual level, at a group level, at an organizational level, and at an interorganizational level. Because we just can't talk about one organization. No organization operates by itself. It operates as part of a value chain network. So it's exceedingly important that when we are talking about security, whether enabled by quantum or another technological innovation, the other supply chain partners must do their part as well. So now, what are these 5 stages of a quantum secure connectivity roadmap? I kind of talked about it at a high level using those 3 pillars of the CPD framework. Now let's get even more specific. As you see in this table, stage 1 is when the leadership recognizes the importance and significance of quantum computing's impact on connectivity and security. And this would happen from executive briefings, risk workshops, funding allocations, even webinars such as this. When these are shared and executives watch these webinars, they develop a higher level of understanding of whether quantum computing is not something they need to be concerned about right now, or whether this is the right time to get in and be proactive about it. The next stage, or the next phase in this roadmap, is assessment of capabilities and planning for the future. This is where an organization will do its due diligence to identify vulnerabilities across cryptographic systems and cloud integrations. They will conduct a crypto inventory, carry out a skill gap analysis, everything that they need to essentially find out where they are from a security and preparedness standpoint, where they need to be, and how do they get there. There has to be a clarity of vision and a clarity of the roadmap that's going to take them there. Another very important stage in this path to secure connectivity is pilot and validation, which involves testing the hybrid encryption models and the quantum key distribution pilots, use of quantum cryptographic as a service for simulation, partnering with telecom providers. So essentially, you have to test the new technology, in this case, quantum computing, that you are bringing in to beef up your systems. The fourth phase is, and this comes under discipline, you'll recollect me saying, we're talking about embedding institutionalizing quantum secure practices into architectures and vendor oversight. This is where policies have to be updated, compliance standards have to be strengthened, and frameworks need to be closely reviewed and improved upon. There also has to be very tight-knit, very expansive, and continuous monitoring of systems, just to make sure that the vulnerabilities that were apparently addressed no longer exist, or if there are any new vulnerabilities that have cropped up, they need to be immediately identified and prompt action taken. And finally, as I said, no organization operates in a vacuum. They are in partnership with many other organizations. And that's why, from an ecosystem leadership standpoint, there has to be a coming together of these different organizations and their resources, where they work together to shape standards and continuously develop and upskill talent. You know, in many ways, organizations, while they can compete at a product level, at a service level, but security is something where they can come together and help each other beef each other's security up. So security could be a source of competitive advantage. That's something that I talk about a lot, so I won't stay away or get away from that point of view. But security could also be a common denominator, could also be a common theme that brings organizations together where they can help each other out. So essentially, those were the 5 stages, but we can do all the roadmaps. We can do all the planning, but it is very important to measure progress. And that's where I've shared some sample metrics, whether you're trying to assess leadership commitment, capability development, operational readiness, governance maturity, and last but not the least, sustained learning. I'm not going to read off this table here, but what I'd like to highlight is when you create metrics or measures, make sure you are measuring what is meaningful and not what is convenient. Very often I see organizations measuring what is easy to gather. Yes, this data is readily available. We can use this to come up with this finding or this metric. That's not very useful. Metrics are only useful if they can guide organizations to take action to get better. So they have to be driven by some objectives, clear objectives. So it's not a question of having too many metrics. It's more important to have a few well-developed metrics that are captured and acted upon. Finally, so what are the lessons? What are the takeaways? What are the strategic imperatives for executives and technologists? For the business executives, for the senior leaders, the C-level folks, it's very important to treat quantum readiness as a connectivity governance issue. I'd go a step further and call it a strategic issue. This is not a technical experiment. This has strategic implications and demands executive attention and action. It's very important that organizations establish a quantum secure connectivity charter with measurable KPIs. I would call that a best practice. And the third is to develop partnerships. I've echoed this many times in this talk, that no organization will navigate this transition alone well. This has to be done in partnership with others, even if the others are competitors, because you can definitely cooperate in the area of security for the greater good. And when it comes to the technical leaders, I would talk about crypto agility testing. Ensure systems can pivot to new algorithms without breaking interoperability. Adopt hybrid architectures that combine PQC, AI-driven anomaly detection, and quantum key distribution pilots. Finally, integrate CPT-driven readiness into DevSecOps pipelines and engineering roadmaps. I'd like to clarify the third one. We're talking about whether you're developing a software, whether you are improving your processes, whether you are enhancing your current products or developing new products, security should be part of that development. Security shouldn't follow the development. Security should be built into the development process. In other words, security should not be an afterthought. So that's how organizations will have to very cautiously, very deliberately navigate the path towards secure networking in the fast approaching quantum era. So in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, the quantum era will redefine secure connectivity, creating both unprecedented opportunity as well as existential risk. Organizations that approach this transformation through strategic commitment, preparedness, and disciplined execution will not only withstand disruption, but harness it for competitive advantage. I hope this presentation provided the strategic compass and organizational roadmap for leading that transformation from awareness to assurance, from experimentation to execution, and from compliance to quantum resilience. With that, I conclude my presentation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Chatterjee. That was excellent. I don't think I could have thought of a better speaker to discuss the future of secure connectivity with our audience today. I also want to take a moment to thank our audience for joining us and for joining us throughout the entirety of the IEEE Cybersecurity for Next Generation Connectivity Systems series. If you were not able to view all of the videos throughout October 2025 Cybersecurity Month, they are available on the Mission Critical Digital Library, LinkedIn, and the IEEE Cybersecurity for Next Generation Connectivity Systems microsite, where you can also submit a form if you are interested in collaborating with the Cybersecurity for Next Generation Connectivity Systems working group in the future. Thank you again for your time, and I want to once again thank Dr. Chatterjee for joining us today.
Thank you, Drew.